Steam has a system where developers making scam and terrible games can and regularly will make more money than genuine good indie devs, and it's because of trading cards. I'm going to show a major reason why Steam is at the very least apathetic to this issue. Let's chat about it in the comments below, but first, my opinion. I'm Tarmack, and this is Feature Creep. Digital Homicide was only the first notable scam developer to abuse the Steam trading cards that I came across, and it took their attempt to compel Valve to release the personal information of 100 Steam users in a lawsuit for Valve to actually do anything about them. It had nothing to do with the fact that the Romian brothers had constructed a business out of selling a large quantity of low-quality Unity asset flips on Steam. This is the very telling bit of the whole situation, and where I have a rather steep accusation to make. Valve, Gabe Newell and his team used to be game developers and in it for the art. They're not anymore, which is frustrating as someone who used to, and to some extent still thinks very highly of them for that skill. The only thing that got Valve to make a move against Digital Homicide was a threat against their business, and everything going on up until that point can be deemed supported and even endorsed, for lack of a better term, by virtue of the revenue that Valve received along the way. I did a video a little while back, which some may remember, identifying a problem with Steam and showing exactly how it was that Digital Homicide actually made money. At the time, I believed that it was just a lucky niche that they had carved out of the dung pile, but I consulted with SteamDB and they sent me some data, which with some heavy research on my part has discovered something of a little epidemic. Digital Homicide was by no means the only company doing this, nor in fact were they the biggest one. The common thought was, why would anybody buy these terrible games? They're so obviously bad. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of how I've arrived at the conclusion that Valve no longer cares about the greater good or quality on the Steam platform, I need to explain what's going on and why it's bad. But don't worry, I do have some pretty heavy nitty-gritty to show you. More than a few examples of conduct just like Digital Homicide, or maybe worse. Hopefully the knowledge of how this is done will bring some change, because anyone can do it. The scam goes like this. You set up a company and you get a game through Steam Greenlight. This is easy enough, especially if you're willing to buy votes. You then release a game every couple of months. Simple enough, what with the Unity Asset Store selling full content packs with no license restrictions for very cheap, and in some cases complete games that you can just resell or reskin and resell. And you make damn sure that you include Steam trading cards with your game. From there, you price the game at around $2 to $4, a nice low cost that makes gamers less concerned about spending some money even when it's at full price. And last but not least, you frequently discount your game to 80 to 90% off, bringing the price down to 20 to 40 cents, and you make sure to get your game into any indie bundle that you can as soon as possible. This has a couple of effects. For starters, when someone filters Steam for low-priced games or searches for highly discounted ones, you have a good chance of being seen. Specifically, the filter for the lowest priced games is loaded with these high percentage discounted titles. But second, and more than that, there are a series of bots that crawl the Steam database and marketplace with one single solitary purpose: to figure out what the cheapest set of cards are on the marketplace for gamers to buy to level up their Steam account. See, the Steam trading cards were instituted as a way to incentivize market participation, playing of games in your personal backlog to receive card drops, and of course a certain level of investment in the platform. Much like a player of an RPG wants to level up, having a high-level Steam account has a certain fascination or desire for many people, and it comes with some perks like a larger number of slots for your friends list. It doesn't take much of a search to see tons of really high-level accounts, and you don't just level up randomly for long. At a certain point, you need to dedicate time and money to actually making it happen. And of course, the higher your Steam account level, the higher percent chance you have to randomly get booster packs of more cards to sell based on your game library. It's a real bottomless pit of wonder. Now, it is worth noting that not every game discounted this far is one of these scam developers, so if you're doing any digging here, research it properly before making any accusations. Some smaller developers with just a title or two to their name could just be bad or inexperienced, not necessarily scam related. I'd also like to show you how much of an impact trading cards have on the interest in a game. This is a graph from SteamDB about a game called Invisible Mind, a notably bad game, but not one that appears to follow the scam model I'm talking about in this video. Here are its player patterns according to SteamDB. Take a note of that giant spike a few months into release. What happened there? The developer added cards. So, you're now set up for success. You have a game which will have high visibility on the low price filter on Steam, as well as high visibility on the Steam trading card sites, as the card volume drives the price down and ensures that you're on the list for people who want to level their account. You can even bundle your games together to generate an even lower price if you so choose. And all you do is continue to add crappy games to your library of developed titles, which compounds the earnings you're going to be soon rolling in. You have now taken advantage of a loophole within the Steam system designed by Valve to encourage user participation. You can then include extras like backgrounds and icons to leverage the marketplace even further. And why do you want to leverage the marketplace? Well, because every player who wants to level up their account is buying cards on it and you are their supplier. Every person or marketplace bot who buys your game is doing so with the sole intention of selling the cards for a few quick cents. And every time a card sells on Steam, you're going to get a few cents from it as well. When someone puts a card up for sale, they pick a price that they want, and the system adds a transaction fee of 5% on top of the price to go to Valve, and a percentage fee to go to the publisher with a 1 penny minimum. That publisher can set their transaction fee, but most of them set it to 10% just like Valve does for their first-party games. So 2/3 of the transaction fee go to the publisher, and 1/3 goes to Valve, minimum of 1 cent each on every transaction. So if someone puts up a card with a price of 2 cents, it actually costs the end user 4 cents, and both publisher and Valve get a penny. Chump change, right? But what if we're talking about hundreds of thousands or even millions of transactions? This is the essence of the scam, as I call it. Frequent, extremely cheap games with no intention of anyone ever playing them for a price so low that buying the game is less than the value you can get selling the cards. It's a two-pronged sale. You make money from the card sharks buying your game, and you make marketplace transactions when they sell your cards on the marketplace. And because your price is so low, the card sharks make a profit from doing this as well. It's really quite ingenious, if it wasn't so disgusting. Now, despite my best efforts, even I have a difficult time with one particular criticism of my arguments here. I chat with viewers on Discord quite regularly. Link is in the description if you want to come and talk. It doesn't cost anything. That argument I have trouble with is asking the question, who does this hurt? My answer is a bit on the abstract side. There isn't a direct victim here, which calls into question my use of the word scam. Steam users get the cards that they want to level up their Steam account, and they choose with eyes wide open how much they're willing to pay for those cards. Developers of bad games make a bunch of money, Valve makes a bunch of money, so nobody's getting scammed. And yet, what we have is a video game platform upon which a group of developers have created games that nobody has any intention of ever playing, and even the developers won't be delusional enough as to believe that their products are good. They have filled the demand for a non-existent product in an artificial market of Valve's design. By the same token, however, I think that the argument against this kind of behavior is one that attacks Steam and Valve at their very core. Gabe Newell and company used to be game developers. They were artists at the absolute skill peak of the industry. And now? Now they're Walmart, Target, eBay. Just another company making money hand over fist without any apparent concern for just how powerful their action, or inaction in this case, can be. Since the inception of Greenlight and subsequent removal of the filter and prestige of getting your game on Steam, we've seen a proliferation of bad content on the platform, which causes serious exposure issues for smaller, great games. And instead of Valve taking any of their untold billions of dollars to employ a team to filter out overt abusive trash, they stay neutral, silent, like a parent who believes that their teenager's cocaine habit is just a phase. And those untold billions, if you believe Steam Spy, and I do, are in the range of $3.5 billion that Valve has made from actual game purchases only, without considering how much comes in from their marketplace transactions. Transactions encouraged by CSGO gambling and scam developer loopholes. It's hard to have sympathy for the commonly trotted out apologist excuse about how difficult it would be to moderate Steam content when numbers like that exist. We've seen firsthand that there are so many games on the platform that even good indie developers who aren't the game media darlings will have frequent and devastating failures simply due to the lack of exposure, not necessarily any fault of their own. Steam used to be the ticket to success, and while I think that that is dangerous too, there has just got to be some middle ground here somewhere. So, do you have some evidence, people will ask? There's more to life than evidence. Actually, yes, I do have evidence and plenty of it. Let's take a look at the curious case of Steam publisher Grab the Games and their main developer Zonatron Productions, which unlike Digital Homicide is still active on Steam with more detail visible due to not being banned. This focuses primarily on Zonatron, as Grab the Games appears to have a couple of legit developers. Remember though, my purpose for this video is not to try to find all of the terrible trash on Steam. Jim does that better than I ever could. Rather, the point is to show how the system is designed in such a way that it supports, encourages, and rewards scam behavior. Grab the Games is a dominant force in the low-price genre on Steam. They have 29 titles currently published on the platform under various developers, but it's their developer Zonatron Productions that caught my eye, due in part to the lack of evidence that they exist. Of these 29 titles Grab the Games has, 15 came from Zonatron. Most of them you'll notice are in the 70 to 90% off range for discounts, pretty frequently too. In fact, remember that sales pattern I described earlier when talking about the scam, which is to set your price at $2 to $4 and regularly discount it to the bottom of the pile? Here's their sales pattern, which is suspiciously consistent. Each game has full trading card support. Each card sells for enough that you as the buyer of their games are guaranteed to break even on the products just by selling the cards on the marketplace. And don't forget that in addition to people buying their games specifically to sell those trading cards, they get a cut of the action by way of the transaction fee that Steam adds to each marketplace listing. And while I was looking this publisher up to search out more information and see if there was a link between them and Zonatron, their biggest developer, I stumbled upon their website. A love child of a deal bot and a referral code with a webpage layout that looks like it was designed by a monkey with dementia. A YouTube channel with 76,000 subscribers, but that nets only a few hundred to a few thousand views per video, which is a totally legit situation, by the way, for a channel that releases regular content. A Steam user group with several 100,000 users based around giveaways and more referral code links. As it turns out, the Zonatron Facebook page lists the uploader of the company logo as one Matija Luckman, or Matthew Luck from Croatia, who happens to be one of the two creators of Grab the Game, so there I made my connection. It's quite literally one of the most egregious click-to-enter a free giveaway piles of junk that I've ever seen, and to top it all off, they're a Steam publisher with a plethora of asset flips and other low-effort content. Grab the Games, according to SteamDB, has a combined 4 million copies of their games owned on Steam, 3.2 million of those coming from the Zonatron developer brand itself. Digital Homicide had around 2.8 million, with pretty close to the same number of released titles. The average playtime is about 4 hours, which is a good rough estimate of the time that it takes the program Idolmaster to extract the cards, and far longer than any human being would play this tosh. Their game reviews are mixed for the most part, but have a significant number of simplistic, almost bot-like positive reviews, and many of the legitimate-looking non-bot reviews recommend the game specifically because of the cheap way to get cards. And sure, they have a giveaway site, but if you go through their page history, most of the giveaways are for games people actually care about, not the asset flip drivel on Steam. Now I'm going to do some quick conjecture with Zonatron Productions and their 3.2 million games owned, just to give you a view of the potential scale here. This is not hard and fast math that I can prove because the ratio of giveaways to bundles to sales is not known, but I'll play it safe on the low end just like I did with Digital Homicide. Assume a low price of the deeply discounted 20 cents a piece. Assume a 30% cut to Valve or whatever bundle site was used. Assume 5% for PayPal or other withdrawal transactions. And just to be well beyond safe, let's assume half of the units owned were given away, so a $0 value. You're still looking at over 200 grand on game sales alone, and if every game had its 3 to 5 cards sold in the marketplace only once, because sometimes people price their cards too low and get snapped up by bots to resell, let's assume that both Valve and Grab the Games made only a single penny on each sale, and we're looking at another $100,000 to $160,000 in card transactions at the low end. And let's just take that a quick step further to look at the Steam reviews. They certainly do have a lot of key activations. Remember those reviews that Steam removed by default for a while. But in almost every case, well over half the reviews come from direct Steam purchases. And you have lovely little reviews like this. Pros, trading cards. Cons, everything else. I've only just scratched the surface of this issue by talking about Zonatron and their parent company Grab the Games. Believe me, I have more. Rather than try to go into great detail for too many, here are some names of developers and publishers using those terms as loosely as I can, which in my opinion are producing scam products to abuse the Steam system that you can look up and see for yourself. Crimson Duck Studios with 4 games since March this year, Mystic Games with 3 games from April to August this year, Freeze Nova with 4 games since January this year, and 67,000 Twitter followers, but single-digit likes and retweets. Every single one of them has frequent discounts or outright price drops in the 80% range, and tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of owners for what are empirically hot garbage titles exclusively because of cards. And if you dig, you'll find more just like I did. Meanwhile, an amazing indie game, Rive, that's R-I-V-E, the last one by great indie dev studio called Two Tribes, has a grand total of about 4,000 owners. Now, the flip side of all of this is that not only has a crew who is, in my opinion, acting as absolutely undeniable scam artists made somewhere in the area of $300,000 to $400,000 from Zonatron, or $500,000 if you look at the greater Grab the Game's publisher brand, this also means that Valve brings in pretty close to that as well because of the same games. So, as a lesson to all Unity developers making starter game kits, you'll make way more money releasing your own game on Steam, assuming you use the scam method. This is the incentive that leads me back to my core point for this video. Without some degree of public outcry, this is why Valve could not care less about ensuring quality content on Steam. The advent of Steam trading cards may well have started out as an innocent money-making venture to encourage more use of the Steam platform, and had at least some logical consumer benefit for the gamification of the end-user Steam account. But as a result of the standard Valve method favoring silence and avoiding critique, they have left open a loophole in the system that you could drive a Mack truck through. Millions of dollars every year will be going into the pockets of Steam scam developers and into the pockets of Valve itself by proxy. And that sucks, especially when there are really good indie devs that would make excellent purchase candidates. Clearly, a direct comparison to Steam trading versus money used to buy indie games cannot be made, but it's still not a good situation. The solution is obvious. One of two things. Steam trading cards should be tied directly to the price paid for a game. The number of cards you get is a ratio against how much the game costs to buy. But, much like the CSGO gambling situation that Valve claims to have nothing to do with, they do very seriously benefit from these artificial markets that their system has created. The sheer number of marketplace transactions going on a daily basis will be absolutely monstrous. I think that it's extremely likely that Valve is pulling in more than $1 million a day from marketplace transactions. Do I have direct numbers to support that? No, but it's not hard to consider that some items sell in excess of 3,000 to 4,000 times a day each. And these scam game cards in some cases sell more than 100 times a day each as well. Just look up Zonatron cards. Steam has around 13,000 products. It doesn't take much with a guaranteed penny per transaction and tens of thousands of items, easily multiple millions of transactions a day, to turn into some pretty hefty cash. Or second, a better solution would be to employ a team dedicated to quality control on Steam. Yank down this nonsense. Take one for the team, guys. Because even in the scenario where a game isn't a scam, just a terrible game, it has no business selling tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of copies exclusively because of trading cards. I would love to consult with Valve on this issue. I'd love to interview Gabe and try to get their perspective, because I think that their side of the story is sorely lacking in no small part due to absence of communication. There are real solutions to these issues which will benefit gamers, anywhere from limits on the trading cards to incentivized systems to provide more exposure to solid, complete indie titles rather than early access nonsense. At a certain point, when you have a mountain of money, it is worth asking the question, do you really need more? Valve doesn't have public shareholders to answer to. This is entirely a situation of their making and within their control, every aspect of it. And for all the good they have done for the game industry in the past, I think that it's both safe and fair to ask that in the case of quality control on Steam, that Gabe and company make some changes to how loopholes they introduced are being abused. Not every dollar is honestly earned. What do you think about the Steam trading card situation? Have you ever bought a cheap game just to get cards? What can we do as gamers to combat this problem? I'd love to read your comments down below. Feature Creep is a regular segment on the channel in addition to the news wrap-up and reviews that I do, and hey, since we're into the self-promotional bit of the video, I think I've gotten to the size where I could be a helpful guest on a podcast or three, so if there's any great podcasters out there who are interested, shoot me an email, a tweet, or a carrier pigeon. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you haven't. That's all I have to say. Tarmack out.